calling it unjustified murder. So Karmelo Anthony is charged with murdering 17-year-old Austin Metcalf after admitting to stabbing him in the chest at a high school track meet last year. Police say the fight started because Anthony was under another team's tent and Metcalf told him to leave. Anthony's defense attorneys say he stabbed Metcalf, who was unarmed, out of fear as a group was, quote, turning on him. But prosecutors yesterday in court showed jurors surveillance footage they say tells a different story. The footage, it's grainy and shot from a distance, but reporters inside the courtroom tell us it shows a brief confrontation between Anthony and Metcalf, not a larger group, before Anthony runs from the scene. And that fight, it only lasted about 4 minutes or so. Jurors heard emotional testimony from Metcalf's track coach. He said that Metcalf was helping lead setup efforts that day, which basically means he was in charge of setting up the tent and equipment. The coach testified and said athletes don't just go under other teams' tents. This is something that's understood between the athletes. This case, it's drawn national attention with race becoming a major issue. The final jury does not include any black jurors. Prosecutors say this case has nothing to do with race and it should be decided on the facts. This trial is expected to last up to 2 weeks, Bill, and if he is convicted, Anthony faces up to life in prison.
To watch and we shall. Brooke Taylor, thank you.
What's up, family? Hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel. So a 17-year-old is dead. Another teenager is sitting in the courtroom facing the possibility of life in prison. And the entire country is watching every single second of this trial unfold. And we're going to break it down because we're going to look at the different perspectives and then I'll give you my thoughts because there's a lot going on here. And most of it isn't even about the courtroom. The defense says self-defense. The prosecution says the surveillance video tells a completely different story. And the jury right now has to sit in that room and decide which version of events actually matches what the evidence shows. That's where we are. And before we even get to the footage, before we get to the testimony, we need to talk about something that happened outside that courtroom because it might be the most important part of this whole conversation, not just for this case, but for how we as a community handle the truth when a person involved looks like you. A reporter asked the woman a straightforward question. She asked if evidence comes out that Karmelo Anthony was not actually fighting for his life when he stabbed and killed Austin Metcalf, do you think the black community will accept that? And the woman said, and I'm quoting her directly here, no, we're going to stand by ours regardless. They stand by theirs, quote unquote. Now, and I'm not here to mock this woman personally. I'm not going to do that, but I have to be honest with you, family, because the answer right there is one of the most dangerous things you can say out loud. And I need you to understand why. Think about it like this. Imagine somebody you work with gets accused of stealing from the register at your job. Security pulls the camera footage. Your manager sits everybody down and says, look, we're going to review what happened. And before the tape even rolls, before anybody sees a single second of that footage, you walk in and say, I don't care what that camera shows. I'm standing by my coworker no matter what, quote unquote. That's not loyalty. That's a problem because now you're not standing by a person. You're standing by a story. And you don't even know yet if the story is true. And here's what people miss when they make that kind of statement. It doesn't just hurt the system, it hurts your own community because when you announce upfront that evidence doesn't matter to you, you lose the moral ground to ask anyone else to follow the evidence when it goes your way. And I want to be real with you because certain individuals grow up thinking a certain way too, or thinking this certain way, and it's not until they get older and actually sat with hard situations and then they understand what it means to let the truth lead, even when it's uncomfortable. And even when somebody, or even when the person on the other side of that truth is somebody you want to defend. That's not weakness. That's actually the harder thing to do. The real division in this case isn't black versus white. And I want you to hear me on that because the real divide is truth versus narrative. And that gap, that space between what actually happened and what people decided happened before the facts came in, that gap is exactly what's pulling people apart right now. So let's talk about what the facts actually are because the details of this case matter and the courtroom is where those details are being sorted out. So now I want you guys to see the woman that I was talking about in regards to the question of basically saying, quote unquote, they stand by theirs, so she's going to stand by her side.
If evidence does come out that Karmelo was not in fact fighting for his life when he stabbed and killed Austin Metcalf, do you think that the black community will accept that?
If evidence shows that he did not, no, we're going to stand by ours regardless. They stand by theirs. We're going to stand by ours regardless. I'm a mother first. I'm a black mother. Let me put that on there. I'm an African-American mother. So I have to put away my color first and step into the motherhood.
She has to put away her color first, but step into motherhood. But she used color as a way to justify not the truth, but the narrative that she wanted to agree with, in which she misconstrued it to the way that she should defend this type of behavior, not based off of truth, but based off of narrative, utilizing her skin color to justify her reasoning to agree with a young man killing another young man at a track meet when they in different schools and shouldn't be under each other's tents in the first place. And I know this from experience being a high schooler and being at track meets and running track as a sprinter. You go where your team is and you have no business being under any other teammate, because if anything, if you're not supporting your teammates, you are actually getting ready for your race when it's time to be called up. So you may pack a couple snacks. I had a couple friends pack, like beef steaks to get some protein in, just because our race was in later in the day. Right. So you want to not run on an empty stomach, but you don't want to run on a full stomach, but you want to be somewhat, not hangry, but just to keep you afloat until you get to your race, and then you'll eat a full meal after, right? When the work is done. So if anything, if I wasn't sitting there getting ready for my race, stretching and warming up, I was supporting my teammates and cheering them on under my tent. With that being said, so I don't know why she's trying to say she's a mother first, because if you're going to use that argument from a parent perspective, yeah, you want to defend your child if it was your child. So you're looking at it from a mother perspective, but then you're justifying the degenerate, enabling behavior for a young man killing another young man when they shouldn't have been under the tent in the first place, to turn around and say, oh, well, I'm gonna take away color and look at it from a mother. But you the one that inserted color in this in the first place. It just makes no sense. You contradicting yourself before you even start justifying your stance in any way, shape, or form. So within your own self, you already discredited yourself to not even be credible enough to have this conversation, because you don't even make no damn sense yourself.
Nobody wants to see their child slain. So I do want to send prayers to Austin Metcalf, their family. But at the end of the day, I got to think like, okay, what did you do to him or whatever to cause this to happen, the reaction? We got to start taking accountability for our kids. Because then again, if my kid, that's why it's a catch-22, if my kid was Karmelo and I feel like his back was up against the wall, well, I'm going to tell you straight up, better mine than yours.
So it's a catch-22, which is not, because she just killed her whole stance by basically saying she understands the Metcalf family, and from a mother perspective, no kid should be slain. But then if it's between mine and yours, and if I was his mother and his back, quote unquote, was against the wall, in what way, shape, or form, when she's going to defend hers if her back was against the wall and she was a Karmelo Anthony mother? So how is his back against the wall when he had no business being under the other team tent in the first place to stab him? Then to take it a step further, if you are saying that, I understand from a mother perspective that nobody's child should be slain, then why in the same sense you're justifying, just because if the kids is yours, or just because just Karmelo Anthony happens to be black like you, or we're going to justify this enabling behavior because his back was quote unquote against the wall before the footage is out, which she acts. So she don't even know what she's saying is true based on truth, and she's not even going based on truth, because the reality is she's going based on color, even though earlier in her point she mentioned to remove color and then inserted it back in the conversation seconds before and seconds later. Makes no sense. I can't really get what she's saying. All I do get from what she's saying is, okay, if this happened to be someone my color, and this happened to be someone in my eyes, it happened to be my kid, their back was against the wall, so I'm going to justify them killing another person when they had no business being nowhere near step forward the other person they killed. Let alone, what also contradicts herself is she basically saying we need to hold the parents accountable. So you're even making your argument look even more bad because not only did you say that the Metcalf family, you know, their child shouldn't have been slain, and you understand that, but then try to justify it with a catch-22, you still lost me because the simple fact is you're saying in the same breath, I justify this, and then on top of it, you're just automatically saying, and then you're saying that basically adults need to be held accountable for their children. You're actually blaming the Carmelo Anthony family from imputing this. You're blaming his parents. So in the same sentence, see, you're trying to play both sides of the fence. You want to justify a killing by your skin color, but then you want to take it back from a mother perspective and say remove color from it, but then say if it's mine versus yours and I'm Carmelo mother, then I justify the killing of the Metcalf family. When you just said the Metcalf family, their child shouldn't have been slain from a mother perspective. Like, what are you talking about? And then if you're going to mention that they need to hold the parents accountable, then you're basically saying Carmelo Anthony parents, the one that need to be held accountable for their child doing that, slain the Metcalf family son based on his behavior, because that's what you're basically saying. It's the parents' fault that Carmelo attacked the Metcalf family attacked this young man and killed him and stabbed him. So if anything, taken from what I said, what she said from what I'm saying right now, she's trying to justify it in the same sense. She's actually telling the truth at the same time by saying it's Carmelo Anthony's parents' fault because they should have been on it and should never got their son to be able to get this far to do it. So no matter how you put it, if it had to outweigh one, had to outweigh the other, Carmelo Anthony is wrong and his parents based on what she's saying. I'm not saying that. I'm just taking the interpretation of what I'm getting from what she's saying, since she want to play both sides of the fence. One tends to, since she want to call it a catch-22, quote unquote, if you want to look at the facts and not even see the footage yet, basically Carmelo Anthony family seems to outweigh more than the Metcalf family to be the ones that be held accountable to the fullest extent. I'm the one that's taking skin color out of it and going based on what she said, because her justification alone still don't hold weight. But anyway, I want you guys to check this out as well.
You seen the video on 2 hours. Was it clear enough or was it fuzzy or what?
No, it was clear. It was
Okay.
It's clear enough to where you can see the actual individual raindrops come by the camera.
Okay.
That's how clear it is. You actually see them walking up. You see that Carmelo is already up under there. He's under there minding his business.
Dodging the rain or?
Yeah, it was still raining. You know,
Right.
I'm from Little Rock. So that day we were under a tornado watch.
Right.
And we were under thunderstorm warning. And we know we had already had some light rain then, and it started raining again. Then it was over with for the day.
Okay.
So that's kind of what happened on that day. But they were at a rain delay already. And so during that time when that happened, the twins, their two buddies, and a few other kids, because there was a few kids involved with them, they were all coming from the direction of the middle school, coming walking back up.
Right.
On the video, you can see those four that actually was involved, and maybe about 3 or 4 others that was with them, skipping up, trying to catch up behind. One veered off probably toward his way to go to the coach and kind of distract him a little bit. And then the other 4 came walking together. One went in front of them, went past.
Right.
The other 4 went and they surrounded Carmelo. You know, if you're Carmelo.
And they showed that on that video.
It's on the video.
Okay, come on.
You can see them walk
I'm gonna
up.
say little
And
stuff.
I'll put
while
it
you
this
talk.
way.
Okay.
They actually tell you when you're watching the video, pay attention to this corner right here, because if you look anywhere else, you might miss different things.
Okay.
So watch those 4. Here they're 4 right there coming up.
Right.
That's exactly what they say.
Okay.
And so you have no way to be confused that it's those 4.
Okay.
So they come up, they surround them, and this immediate moment of not even a few seconds of pause, then that's when they jump. And so
they actually did jump him.
Yeah, it wasn't just no touch. It wasn't just all that moment. Yeah, it was a push. It was all kind of things. But Austin pushed, Hunter hit, and then everybody swung. But at the same time,
So it's more than the twins that got some licks
all
on
4.
them. So it showed that in the video.
Yes, in the video. So again, you got Hunter and Austin standing in the middle,
Okay.
and you have the light bright boy here, and you have the darker boy here.
Okay.
I think that's what I remember. So I have to go back and think about it. But that's where they were. One was going up and down while they were talking and kind of pushing or whatever he was doing. Austin and Hunter was in front. So where they're talking about grabbing bags, Hunter actually said that I grabbed his bag.
Right.
And then later on, he said that Austin threw the bag.
Okay.
Jeff also said the same thing. And so that's them both antagonizing. And we know under Texas law, I just have the fear that you're about to do something to me and you can get up out of here. Yeah, so you don't have to touch me. But at that point, he still stood there and stopped there. And whatever they say alleged was said, you don't know that until they get to it here. But once they did that, they started hitting him. Karmelo actually was able to back out and try to get away. So he was actually trying to get away the first time. Austin grabbed him, and you can see his hoodie coming out like this, and they brought him back in.
Okay.
And when they brought him back in, that's when you can see Austin put him in a headlock. You can see that all the rest of them are still hitting. That must be when the poke happened, because he was able to get out again. He backed out. He looked to the right. That's where the other little kid was filming, because they got some cell phone footage too. But that's where he was filming. He looked directly at him in his camera, and then he went this way to the left. He went down. He fell. And that's when they realized he was gone, because they were still punching.
I'm gonna leave it there. All right, let's get into what actually happened that day, because the facts matter here, and I want to walk you through the plain and simple situation. Karmelo Anthony, a teenager, was at a high school track meet. Austin Metcalf, also 17 years old, was there too, working that day, helping his team set up their tent equipment because his coach put him in charge of that. According to the report, the confrontation started because Anthony was sitting under another team's tent and Metcalf told him to leave. Now, right there, before anything else happens, the coach testified that athletes know you don't go under another team's tent. That's an unwritten rule in track. It's understood. You don't sit in somebody else's setup during the meet. So Metcalf was doing what any athlete in his position would do. He was protecting his team's space, and the confrontation grew from there. Anthony stabbed Metcalf in the chest. Metcalf died. Anthony admitted to the stabbing. That part is not in dispute by anyone. What is in dispute is why, and that's what this trial is about, honestly. The defense's argument is that Anthony stabbed Metcalf because he genuinely feared for his life. As you see this man here explaining from his view, from the surveillance video that he claimed he saw in this video that we see the man on the screen right now, that supposedly he was being antagonized and he was being jumped, right? Their language was that a group was, quote unquote, turning on him, meaning Anthony believed he was about to be seriously hurt or killed, and he acted in self-defense to protect himself. That is the legal argument they brought into that courtroom. Now, as he mentioned here, in Texas, self-defense law works like this. You have to be in genuine, reasonable fear that you are about to face death or serious physical harm. You also cannot be the one who started the conflict. And the facts of the situation have to actually support that fear. It can't just be a feeling you had. The evidence has to line up with the claim. So the prosecution took that argument and they showed the jury surveillance footage from the scene. And the reporters who were sitting inside that courtroom watching the same footage described something very different for what the defense was putting forward. They described a brief confrontation between Anthony and Metcalf, not a group attack, not a mob closing in, as he's saying right here on the screen. A short exchange between two people, and the fight, according to reporting from inside the room, lasted somewhere around 4 minutes total, with the actual physical contact being much shorter than that. And I want you to really think about that for a second, because 4 minutes is not a long time, but it's also long enough for the truth to get captured on camera, and the camera doesn't negotiate. So you got the defense saying the group was turning on this kid. You got court reporters who watched the footage saying what they saw was one-on-one. And I want you to hold on to that contradiction, because it's about to get bigger, family, because after you hear this report from Fox News, I want you to hear.
There are online rumors that started at least by some in the Anthony camp that he was jumped by 4 guys and that his act was therefore in self-defense. And the video you're telling me does not support that allegation.
Not even in the least bit, Will. Not even close. It was one-on-one. You can absolutely make out that there's 2 people that get into a scuffle. It's very, very short in duration. The contact between the 2 of them probably lasted less than 5 seconds. And as soon as the push went the other direction, which presumably is when he was stabbed, you can see everybody, completely scattered.
So there you have it. That's the Fox News report, right? Came out with where a different person claimed to describe the exact same video. And what he said is so far from what those reporters described that you have to step and ask yourself a question, a real question, right? Because you've seen all the clips so far, you've seen the perspectives. How can two people watch the same footage and come away with stories that don't even resemble each other? This is Fox News from the Will Kane show. You heard the man explaining the footage that he saw out there and talking with his, I don't know, Bahama Breeze Hawaii shirt. So here's where it stops being complicated and starts being simple, because I like to be simple. Life is simplistic, and the simplest things you do in life actually gets you further. Life is already complex, so you want to keep it simple, right? So a witness came forward and said he watched the surveillance footage, and what he described was a coordinated attack. That was the Hawaiian shirt man that I showed you. He explained his side. He said you could see 4 people walking up together, one of them peeling off towards the coach to distract them while the others moved in on Karmelo. He said they surrounded him, they jumped him, Austin pushed, his brother punched, everybody swung. Austin grabbed Carmelo's hoodie and pulled him back in and put him in a headlock. The others kept hitting, and that's when the stabbing happened. He described Karmelo trying to get away, backing out, getting dragged back in, and then finally breaking free after the stab and the running. That's the story he told. He said he could see individual raindrops on the camera. That's how clear the footage was. He was confident. He was detailed. He was specific. And if that's what the video actually showed, that would be a meaningful self-defense argument. 4 people jumping you while one runs distraction is a very different situation than a 2-person argument that goes wrong. But then a legal analyst who watched the same footage sat down and said the opposite. Not a modified version of the same story, the opposite. He said the online claim that Karmelo got jumped by 4 guys don't support the video. You just heard it. Not even close, were his words. So he said you can clearly make out 2 people getting into a scuffle. The contact between them lasted 5 seconds. And the moment the push went the other direction, which he said is presumably when the stabbing happened, everybody scattered. That's it. Brief, 1-on-1. Over fast, 2 people, not 4. No headlock described. No coordinated attack. Closing in. Just a short scuffle between 2 kids that ended with one of them stabbed. So now think about that. Same video, 2 completely different accounts. And this isn't like 2 people watching a game and disagreeing on a call. This is the difference between a mob attack and a 1-on-1 fight. Those aren't 2 versions of the same story. Those are 2 different stories. So somebody's account doesn't match. And what threw me off with Hawaiian man is he sat there and said, I think that's what I remember. Well, if you're trying to sit there and say what you saw in the footage and you saw raindrops on the camera and it was clear as day, then how you think of what you recalled, right? With the man with the Hawaiian shirt with the silver chain, I keep referring to. I'm gonna call him Hawaiian shirt. So somebody's account doesn't match what's on that footage, and in the courtroom, the footage is the receipts. And here's the part that doesn't add up on a pure common sense level. If Karmelo was genuinely jumped by 4 people, if 4 kids were beating on him at the same time, why did he only stab 1? When you're fighting for your life against a group, your focus isn't that precise. And more than that, Karmelo's own defense team never mentioned a 4-person attack in their official statements. Karmelo himself never said he was jumped by 4 people. The defense argument was that a group was, quote unquote, turning on him, which is different from saying 4 kids were actively beating him while 1 ran a distraction play on the coach. That version of events came from somewhere outside the defense table, and it doesn't line up with what anyone connected to the actual case put on record. And prosecutors told the jury this case has nothing to do with race and should be decided on the facts alone. And from where I'm sitting, that's the only honest way to look at it. Because when a story is being told about a piece of evidence don't match the evidence itself, you don't need race to explain the gap. You just need to ask who's telling the truth, and that's exactly what this jury has to figure out. And this is where the bigger conversation starts to come in, because what's happening in the courtroom is connected to something much larger than one fight under a tent at a track meet. And I need you to sit with this for a second, because when a community decides that loyalty to a person matters than loyalty to the truth, the whole system starts to crack for everybody. Not just for the people on the wrong side of that case, but for the people on the right side too, because you can't build a fair system on selective honesty. And it also makes grinds my thinking, because from a parent perspective, you heard the clip of the woman saying that basically they gonna protect their side, so they're gonna protect theirs, I'm gonna protect my side, using race as a justification. Well, and then she said if she was a mother, and I keep going back to it because it really just blows my mind. She said if she was a mother, even though the Metcalf family, no child should be slain, if my child had back was against the wall and Karmelo Anthony was my son, she's riding and defending her son. So now, since she also mentioned holding the parents accountable, it makes the parents look bad too, because now it made me just think of another question. How long did the parents know this was going on? Because this couldn't have been a one-time incident if Austin Metcalf and these gentlemen been picking on him. There had to be some type of history before that, is my point. So did he ever mention it to his parents? Did his parents ever pay attention? Did they ever bring it to the coach? None of this is mentioned. So you either want the truth to come out every time, or you already decided the truth only matters when it works in your favor. And that's not justice. That's just a different kind of corruption. And I said this before and I'll say it again. You cannot demand fairness from a system while also telling the same system up front that evidence won't change your mind. Those two things cannot exist together. Now, I want to address the jury conversation directly, because a lot of people pointed to the fact that the final jury had no black jurors. I keep seeing that online, and called that proof of bias right away. And I hear their concern. I understand why people look at a case involving a black defendant and a jury with no black members and feel uneasy. Okay, you feel that way? Your real feeling? I'm not dismissing your feelings. But think about it from the other direction for a second. Just watch the clip of a woman say on camera that if the evidence showed Karmelo wasn't fighting for his life, the community still won't accept it. That clip exists. We just seen it. So prosecutors know it exists. Defense attorneys know it exists. Jury selection is where both sides ask potential jurors whether they can be fair and follow the evidence. And if you're a juror who gets asked that question and you seen that clip circulate and you identify with that sentiment, you're going to get removed from that jury. Not because of your race, but because of your answer. So before we land on bias as the only explanation, we had to be honest about whether that stand by ours regardless, quote unquote, energy played a role in how people answer questions in that room. That's a fair question to ask. So here's what self-defense law actually asks a jury to consider. And I want to keep this plain. You have to be facing a genuine, reasonable threat of death or serious harm. See, because where I'm from, in my state, we don't have self-defense laws. It's called fleeing and calling for emergency. And you have to just flee and take cover until emergency comes. Every state doesn't have self-defense laws, is my point. But Texas does. I mean, the only thing that I think my state would justify is home protection, but it had to be a real danger on top of that. Prove it. And that's even more extreme. But the simple fact that self-defense laws does exist in Texas, where this happened in Fresco, Texas, you can't just sit there and use it as a narrative in a way to be biased and ignore the truth. So you're justifying, you're trying to remix the definition of self-defense because the law exists in a way that's selective truth towards you to be biased in your favor, and you inserting the woman that you seen in the clip in certain race to justify her stance. That's why I mentioned asking the jury to consider self-defense, and I'm telling you the law exactly. Because the word reasonable is doing a lot of work in that sentence. It doesn't just mean you were scared. It means a reasonable person in your exact situation would also have believed their life was in danger. And the jury has to look at it from that perspective. And if the footage that jury watched showed a brief one-on-one scuffle that lasted less than 5 seconds, according to Fox on the Will Kane show, in this clip on the screen, lasted less than 5 seconds in contact, the jury has to ask whether that situation, as it actually unfolded, meets the legal standard for deadly force. That's not a racial question. That's a legal one. And for every young person watching this, as myself, I'm young, I want you to hear this clearly. The choices you make in a single moment of conflict don't stay in that moment. They follow you. The cameras at that track meet kept rolling after the fight ended. The footage doesn't care which story you tell later. It already recorded what happened. And when the story you tell afterward doesn't match what the camera caught, you don't just have a legal problem, you have a credibility problem. And in the courtroom, credibility is everything. So whatever pressure you feel in that moment, whatever your instinct is when someone gets in your face, the life you build after that moment depends on the decision you make inside it. So both families in this situation lost something that can't be given back. Austin Metcalf is gone. His parents, his coach, his teammates, they're all carrying that. And Karmelo Anthony, whatever this jury decides, was a teenager when this happened. And his life has been on hold since the day it occurred. And there's no version of the story where everyone walks away whole. That's the real cost. And that cost should weigh on all of us when we talk about this case. Like, I don't get it. This will weigh on all of us, no matter the race. So people talking about this case like it's entertainment. It isn't. So I'm going to bring this home. The truth doesn't need your help to survive. It doesn't need your hype. It doesn't need you to hype it up. Defend it before the evidence comes in or build a wall around it. It just needs time and a camera that was rolling. And in this case, both of those things existed. So Proverbs chapter 12, verse 17 says, an honest witness tells the truth, but a false witness tells lies. And what that means in real life is simple. What you say under pressure tells people who you are, not who you want to be, not how you feel about somebody, who you actually are when the stakes are real. So standing by your community is something I believe in, but standing by a false story doesn't protect your community. It weakens it. Because real loyalty means wanting the truth out no matter where it lands. Let me know what you think in the comments. Hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on your post notifications, spread that peace, love, and positivity. Let the love supersede the hate, as I always say. And as always, we having a conversation. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.